They misread the market, built the wrong bikes, and priced out their own riders. Now dealerships are drowning, production lines are going dark, and no one's taking responsibility. Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll see the crash wasn't accidental. It was engineered. The day the bikes went quiet. A few years ago, motorcycles didn't just exist, they thundered. You could hear them coming. The deep rumble of a Harley-Davidson, the scream of a sport bike, the raw echo of freedom. They weren't just machines, they were statements. But in 2025, that roar has turned into a whisper. Or worse, a wheeze. Today's dealerships are quiet. Showroom floors that once buzzed with life feel abandoned. Models that once sold fast now sit for over 200 days, even with slashed prices. The soul of riding hasn't vanished. It's been pushed away. Riders were priced out, ignored, and replaced by luxury dreams no one asked for. Touchscreens, inflated tags, and tech gimmicks replaced grit and thrill. Somewhere along the way, brands stopped listening. This wasn't a sudden collapse. It was a slow erosion. And if we rewind the tape to 2020, we'll see exactly when the first cracks began to spread. Pandemic sugar rush, the demand that lied. The year 2020 was chaos. Lockdowns gripped the world, and in that pressure cooker, motorcycles became the ultimate escape. Cabin fever met throttle fever. Sales surged. Dealerships were flooded. Inventory vanished. Manufacturers celebrated. But they misread the moment. What felt like a cultural shift was a short-lived sugar high, fueled by boredom, stimulus checks, and social distancing. The industry thought it was a revolution. It wasn't. They ramped up production, expanded product lines, greenlit flashy tech projects. Harley-Davidson added rider assist packages. Yamaha ballooned its MT line. BMW went full sci-fi. They bet big. And then the demand vanished. As inflation rose and gas prices spiked, bikes became luxury liabilities. Consumers fled, but factories kept building. Dealers kept ordering. The supply chain never got the memo. Now all that inventory sits idle, an expensive echo of a party that ended long ago. The crash wasn't sudden. It was self-inflicted. It wasn't just a miscalculation, it was delusion. And when buyers didn't come back, the industry had to face a grim truth. It had built a mountain of bikes for a demand spike that never meant to stay. But the real betrayal came when prices didn't just stay high, they skyrocketed. If this collapse feels personal, hit like and drop a comment. What's your local dealership really going through right now? Premium killed the ride. Once upon a time, motorcycles were a symbol of freedom, not finance. They were tools of rebellion, not toys for the elite. But somewhere in the past 5 years, affordability got thrown under the bus. Manufacturers started treating their bikes like boutique fashion brands. Paint jobs got fancier. Digital displays ballooned, USB ports multiplied, and the price tags, they exploded. Take Harley-Davidson's Street Glide. Back in 2019, it was already pricey at around $22,000, but in 2025, it's crept up to $35,000. That's not a motorcycle. That's a luxury SUV you can't drive in the rain. Entry-level bikes like the Yamaha MT-07 and the Honda Rebel, once go-to-picks for new riders, are now flirting with the $15,000 line after tech upgrades that no beginner asked for. Touchscreens, cornering ABS, ride modes, Bluetooth integration. Sounds impressive, until you realize none of it makes the ride more thrilling. It just makes the payment more painful. Manufacturers call it premiumization. Riders call it what it is, nonsense. The engine's the same. The thrill is the same. But now you need a loan the size of a small mortgage to access it. That trade-off pushed many riders away from new bikes entirely. Why drop 30 grand on a machine that barely feels different from its 10-year-old version? Especially when used bikes offer 90% of the experience for half the price? The result? People aren't upgrading. They're holding on to what they have. They're avoiding new models with inflated costs and features they'll never use. And the few who do venture into showrooms are often scared off not by the bikes, but by the banks. Because even if you find your dream machine, there's one more gatekeeper standing in your way: the lender. The market may be broken, but we found gear that still delivers. Check the affiliate links below to get the real value brands won't tell you about. The credit check chokehold. Imagine this: you've picked the perfect bike, you've justified the purchase, convinced your spouse it's practical, and now you're ready to sign. There's just one problem. The bank laughs you out the door. Back in 2019, getting financing for a motorcycle was manageable. Interest rates hovered around 3 to 5%. Reasonable, predictable, achievable. But in 2025, those same loans now demand anywhere from 9 to 18%, if you're lucky enough to get approved at all. And if you think that's bad, add in the insurance. In places like California and Florida, premiums for mid-range bikes have doubled. Some riders are paying over $2,000 a year just to insure a vehicle they might ride twice a week. The financing model has collapsed. Lenders have become risk-averse. 1 in 5 applicants is getting flat-out rejected, and it's not just people with bad credit. Even buyers with decent scores are facing deeper scrutiny, higher down payments, and more paperwork than ever. Why? Because motorcycles are classified as recreational vehicles, aka the first things people default on when money gets tight. And right now, money is tight everywhere. The ripple effect is brutal. Even dealers offering 0% short-term financing can't move bikes if buyers can't pass the credit check. Rising costs, loan rejections, and insane insurance rates have created a locked gate between riders and machines. It's not just about price anymore, it's about access. And fewer people are making it through that gate. But the real cost of this crisis, it's not just financial, it's cultural. The joy of riding is being priced out, locked down, and smothered by spreadsheets. And while lenders tighten the screws, dealers are facing their own slow-motion collapse. Because just beyond that locked gate lies another battlefield, and it's stacked with bikes no one can move. Showroom Graveyards. Step into a motorcycle dealership in 2025, and it feels like a showroom frozen in time. The lights are bright, the chrome gleams, but there's no movement, no buyers. Just rows of untouched bikes collecting dust and dealers quietly bleeding cash. The problem isn't just weak demand, it's floor plan financing, a system where dealers borrow to stock inventory, paying interest until bikes sell. When inventory moved in 30 days, it worked. But now, bikes are sitting for 100 days or more, racking up interest. Some dealers are paying over $800 per unit before a sale even happens. Manufacturers, still pumping out inventory, push quotas and discounts, shifting the burden to dealers. The factory gets paid, the dealer gets crushed. Warehouses overflow, off-site storage fills up, and each passing week deepens the debt spiral. What used to be buzzing hubs of motorcycle culture now resemble storage lots for machines no one wants. And while corporate giants might weather the storm, the independent shops, the ones built by families, by passion, by grit, are facing extinction. The last mom-and-pop shops. In small towns across America, motorcycle dealerships weren't just businesses. They were landmarks. Weekend riders gathered there. Mechanics knew your name. Behind the counter wasn't a corporation, but a family. Husband and wife, father and daughter, brothers turning wrenches. These mom-and-pop shops weren't chasing empires. They were keeping the dream alive, one sale at a time. But 2025 has been brutal. These independent dealerships are vanishing. Some closed quietly, others shared tearful goodbyes online. The reasons are cruel but clear. Unsold inventory racking up interest, demand collapsing, and manufacturers abandoning them. Many borrowed heavily to survive the pandemic, betting the post-COVID boom would last. It didn't. Worse still, manufacturers now favor corporate-owned giants. Discounts, support, and incentives flow to the big players. If you're moving 20 bikes a month, you're invisible. If you move 200, you get rewarded. The old model that once gave small shops a chance now starves them. And when these doors close, it's more than lost revenue. It's lost jobs, trusted relationships, community spaces, and culture. Rider clubs lose their anchor. Young riders lose a place to start. Towns lose a piece of their identity. For the families who built these shops, it's not just business, it's heartbreak. Years of grit, service, and loyalty erased in months. But while new bikes gather dust and dealerships fall silent, another crisis is exploding, this time in the used market. Repo flood, when even used bikes crash. In normal times, used bikes were the safety valve. Couldn't afford the latest model? Grab a 2-year-old trade-in for half the price. The used market was fast, fluid, and full of options. But not anymore. In 2025, that market has turned from opportunity into overflow. It started with the wave of repossessions. During the pandemic, many buyers financed bikes on the back of stimulus checks, low interest rates, and short-term optimism. But when inflation surged and loan rates spiked, many of those riders couldn't keep up. By mid-2024, repo agencies were hauling away motorcycles at record rates, thousands every week. Harleys, Yamahas, Ducatis. No brand was immune. These repo bikes flooded the used market, prices dropped like anchors. What once sold for $8,000 now struggles to fetch $5,000. Used dealerships are drowning in inventory they can't move. Private sellers are undercutting each other in online listings. And buyers, they've become picky. Why buy your neighbor's well-used ride when dealers are dumping nearly new trade-ins for the same price? This collapse has created a vicious cycle. Private sellers can't offload their bikes, so they hold on to them. Dealers can't move their used inventory, so they stop taking trade-ins. And new buyers? They see the chaos and wait. The used market, once the industry's pressure release valve, has now become its own clogged system, jammed with product, devoid of demand, and wrecking resale values. But this flood isn't just about quantity, it's also about quality. Because not all bikes are created equal, and some should never have hit the road at all. Bike bombs, the machines no one wanted. Every industry has its flops. But in the motorcycle world, 2023 and 2024 brought a wave of spectacular failures. Machines that missed the mark, misunderstood riders, and misread the moment. The Harley-Davidson Nightster Special was a prime example. It promised retro flair and modern power but delivered awkward ergonomics and confused styling. At over $15,000, it felt underwhelming, and sales reflected it. Then came the BMW CE04, a sleek electric scooter built for urban commuters. It looked futuristic but lacked range, storage, and practicality. Priced around $12,000, it alienated both enthusiasts and everyday riders. Even Honda and Suzuki stumbled. Honda's Hawk 11 tried to revive cafe racer charm, but came off as bland and overpriced. Suzuki's GSX S 1000 GT Plus aimed for sport touring but fell short with outdated tech and clumsy design. The message was clear. Manufacturers weren't listening. They were designing in boardrooms, not biker bars, chasing trends instead of torque. The result? Bikes no one wanted, gathering dust on showroom floors. These failures weren't just bad launches, they were expensive miscalculations. For an industry already on the edge, they didn't just hurt, they suffocated. And behind the scenes, in factories once humming with pride, the silence is about to get even louder. The line goes cold. In spring 2025, the factories that once powered the motorcycle world fell silent. Not idle, silent. Assembly lines froze. Robotic arms stopped mid-motion. Thousands of workers were told not to come in, indefinitely. Production cuts swept the globe. Honda halted operations at 2 major plants. Harley-Davidson furloughed nearly 2,000 in Pennsylvania. Ducati slashed output by 30%. In Thailand, entire shifts vanished. This wasn't just a drop in demand, it was a cost crisis. Tariffs, supply chain chaos, and rising prices for steel, aluminum, lithium, and cobalt made production unaffordable. Energy bills soared. Labor costs climbed. Interest rates crushed factory financing. The old model, build at scale, sell fast, collapsed. Factories had to choose, keep making bikes no one would buy or hit the brakes. Most stopped, And the impact wasn't just economic. Cafes shuttered, suppliers folded, training programs froze. A whole generation watched the gates close and wondered if they'd ever reopen. But as the factory stopped humming, another identity crisis began brewing. One that had nothing to do with machinery and everything to do with meaning. Who even are we anymore? Ask a rider from the 1980s what their favorite brand stood for, and the answer would be instant. Harley-Davidson, freedom and rebellion. Yamaha, accessible performance. BMW, precision engineering. There was pride in the patch you wore, in the emblem on your tank. It was more than transportation, it was tribal. Fast forward to 2025 and that emotional tether has frayed, if not snapped entirely. Riders today are confused. What does Harley-Davidson even stand for now? Is it the last bastion of American steel? Or a luxury lifestyle brand peddling electric toys to influencers? What about Honda? Once the champion of the working-class commuter. Their latest models now flirt with unaffordable price tags and are loaded with tech most buyers never asked for. The crisis isn't just about marketing, it's about identity. Brands that once built their reputation by understanding their riders have lost that connection. They chase trends instead of trust. They tried to impress investors instead of inspiring loyalty. They hired consultants to modernize their image, but forgot to ask riders what they wanted. Social media hasn't helped. The performative culture around motorcycling, glamour shots, influencer rides, and algorithm-chasing content feels miles away from the dusty back roads and garage wrenching that once defined the soul of riding. Motorcycles have become photo props, not passion projects, and that shift has alienated the very base the industry was built on. The emotional core has been hollowed out, and in trying to be everything to everyone, many brands now feel like they stand for nothing at all. But this isn't the first time the motorcycle world faced an existential crisis. And if we rewind the clock 17 years, we'll find the last time the industry nearly fell apart and what it failed to learn. Rewind to survive, what 2008 taught us. Back in 2008, the global economy imploded. The housing crash, banking collapse, and ensuing recession rippled into every sector, including motorcycles. Sales plummeted, dealerships closed, inventory ballooned. Sound familiar? But some manufacturers adapted, others didn't, and those decisions defined the next decade. Harley-Davidson, flush with cash before the crash, stubbornly doubled down on heavyweight cruisers. They assumed loyalty would carry them through. It didn't. By 2009, they were laying off workers and begging Congress for help. In contrast, Triumph pivoted. They expanded their mid-range offerings, launched new models at accessible price points, and rebuilt their brand around versatility and authenticity. They emerged stronger. Japanese makers learned a hard lesson about overextension. Suzuki, which had flooded the US market with every conceivable variant of every bike they made, scaled back hard. Honda streamlined operations and improved quality. Kawasaki doubled down on affordability and performance, capturing budget-conscious riders in the post-crisis era. But the most important lesson of 2008? The industry realized that emotion still mattered. In the middle of economic collapse, the bikes that sold were the ones that made people feel something. Scramblers, standards, naked bikes with character, machines that reminded riders why they fell in love in the first place. That moment was a wake-up call. But in the decade that followed, prosperity returned. Profits rose and the industry slowly fell back into old habits. Premium pricing, brand dilution, corporate bloat. And now in 2025, the same warning signs are flashing, but this time the challenge is different. Because the next motorcycle revolution won't be loud, it'll be nearly silent. The quiet boom. The next bike won't roar. You can't hear the next wave of motorcycles coming, not because it's far away, but because it's silent. Electric propulsion is no longer a niche, it's a reality. And for a growing segment of riders, the absence of engine noise isn't a drawback. It's a feature. The shift isn't just about batteries, it's about philosophy. Riders are gravitating toward minimalism, simplicity, and practicality. The next bike doesn't want to impress with top speed. It wants to slide into your life quietly, seamlessly, like a phone, not a Ferrari. Brands like Zero Motorcycles and Ryvid are leading this cultural reset. Their models are lightweight, user-friendly, and designed with the urban commuter in mind. Instead of complicated tech packages and 45-degree V-twins, they offer plug-and-play reliability. No oil changes, no clutch cables, no intimidation, just twist and go. Meanwhile, micro-mobility is rising. Electric mopeds, pedal assist bikes, even standing scooters are eating into short-range travel needs. For a city dweller, the idea of spending $20,000 on a heavy gas-powered cruiser sounds absurd when a $2,000 electric option gets you there faster, cheaper, and cleaner. Legacy brands are scrambling to catch up. Harley's Livewire spinoff promised innovation but struggled with price and identity. BMW's CE series appeals to design-forward commuters but still costs more than many used cars. And while Japanese firms are slowly prototyping electric options, they're moving cautiously, perhaps too cautiously. But the market isn't waiting. Younger riders don't want nostalgia. They want utility. They want something that fits in their apartment garage, plugs into the wall, and doesn't break the bank. The idea of motorcycling is changing. From adrenaline sport to urban tool, from weekend escape to weekday solution. And just like that, the classic roar of combustion, once the heartbeat of freedom, is becoming obsolete. Not overnight, but inevitably. Factories are shuttered, identities are lost, old lessons are forgotten. And now the very essence of the motorcycle is being rewritten, not with a roar, but with a whisper. Regulators at the gate. When the motorcycle market collapsed in 2025, governments around the world were caught flat-footed. But by the time the factory doors had slammed shut and unemployment numbers ticked up, regulators were already crafting their responses. The motorcycle crash wasn't just an industry story, it was a regulatory wake-up call. At the center of the policy storm were emissions. For years, motorcycles had been allowed to skate under the radar. While cars and trucks faced increasingly stringent carbon standards, two-wheelers were granted exemptions and delays. But that leniency ended the moment fleets of unsold internal combustion bikes began to rot in showrooms. In Europe, the reaction was swift. The European Union introduced a fast-tracked emissions clampdown, Euro 6 standards for motorcycles, set to be enforced by 2026, with no phase-in grace period. These new rules, requiring dramatically reduced nitrogen oxide emissions and higher fuel efficiency, effectively sounded the death knell for many gas-powered models still in production. The United States took a different route. With the Environmental Protection Agency under pressure to act, federal regulators proposed a sustainability tier tax model, charging higher registration fees for high-emission bikes and offering incentives for low or zero-emission alternatives. States like California, New York, and Oregon raced ahead, introducing electric motorcycle-only rebates and grants for buyers switching from combustion models. In Asia, where motorcycle volume dwarfs the West, the approach was a blend of carrot and stick. India announced a mandatory EV transition plan for two-wheelers under 125 cubic centimeters by 2027. Vietnam and Thailand accelerated similar targets, offering subsidies for electric manufacturers and penalizing importers who failed to meet local production quotas for clean vehicles. These regulatory shifts weren't just about the environment, they were about control, about showing that governments, not corporations, set the future of mobility. Lawmakers across the globe are now asserting themselves as the architects of the post-motorcycle crash landscape. And while policy is reshaping what comes next, the damage to local communities is already done. When the line shuts down, so does the town. In many towns, motorcycles weren't just machines, they were the economy. Entire ecosystems depended on them: plants, paint shops, parts suppliers, and logistics. So when production lines froze, it wasn't just jobs that vanished, it was a way of life. In Marysville, Ohio, home to one of Honda's largest motorcycle plants, nearly 1,500 workers lost their paychecks after two major layoffs. Local shops, cafes, laundromats, hardware stores saw business disappear overnight. The city paused infrastructure projects, and festivals were canceled as tax revenue dried up. In Bologna, Italy, where Ducati shaped generations of craftsmen, output cuts fractured families. Some left for gig work, others immigrated. Schools saw declining enrollment. A legacy of precision manufacturing began to dissolve. And it wasn't just assembly workers. Truckers, warehouse staff, and mechanics all felt the fallout. In towns built around bikes, the collapse hit like a wrecking ball. Labor unions scrambled. Germany's IG Metall demanded retraining. In Japan, unions pushed for early retirement and apprenticeships. But for many, help came too late. This wasn't just economic damage. It was psychological. Pride vanished. Tradition fractured. And what remained was a lingering uncertainty, an identity lost when the engines went silent. Meanwhile, as the West grapples with factory silence, a different noise is rising from the East. Asia rising, West stalling. While the West motorcycle market contracts, Southeast Asia is electrifying, fast. As Europe and North America debate subsidies and regulations, Asia is building factories, training workers, and delivering electric models at a pace the West can't match. In Vietnam, VinFast has gone from unknown to dominant. Backed by government support, its e-scooters now flood urban streets, underpricing Chinese and Indian rivals. In just 2 years, its market share has passed 30%, and it's now expanding into Thailand and Indonesia. India's Hero Motocorp has also gone electric, partnering with Ather Energy and powering up massive plants. One Gujarat facility now produces nearly 25,000 electric bikes per month, twice Harley-Davidson's global sales in all of 2024. Even China is raising its game. Brands like NIU and Yedia are shipping worldwide, supported by renewable-powered factories and upgraded quality standards. This isn't just economic momentum, it's geopolitical. Asian nations see electric bikes as a strategic export weapon. African countries are importing them en masse, skipping the gasoline era entirely. Meanwhile, Western manufacturers stall, trapped by legacy costs and outdated strategies. The future of two-wheeled innovation. It might speak Vietnamese, Hindi, or Mandarin, not English or German. And while global forces shift, the average buyer is left asking the simplest question of all. What do I do now? Still watching? That means you see what's coming. Subscribe now, because we're not done uncovering what really caused this crash. Buy, sell, wait, or walk away. For riders, investors, and enthusiasts, the motorcycle collapse has made every decision uncertain. Resale values are down up to 40%, even for brands like BMW and Harley-Davidson. If you can wait, do. If you need cash, sell fast, before prices fall further. Thinking of buying? Tread carefully. Dealer discounts are tempting, but consider parts availability, brand stability, and long-term service. Only buy if you're confident you'll keep and use the bike for years. Electrics? They're gaining ground, but battery costs and resale doubts remain. Incentives help, but only where infrastructure is strong. Many buyers are waiting, and for good reason. The market's still falling. Others are walking away entirely, burned by high costs, broken trust, and fading passion. Some bikes were doomed from the start. Others were built with good intentions but ended up destroying the trust of the riders they were meant to serve. If you want to see the models that never should have made it to the showroom, or the crash the entire industry is now paying for, that's where you need to go next. And if this one opened your eyes, like, comment, and subscribe, because the real story, it's just getting started.